Welcome back, everybody. Listen, hey, Rocky, I got work to do over here. Say hi to Rocky. This is my little guy here. He likes to sit right on your lap. Apollo's doing his thing. But we got to work, so say bye-bye. Let's do a hand breakdown from the recent win that I had. Well, the first event of the year. I'm going to go over a few of the key hands. We went over one in the last video where we made a good fold on the river. And in this one, we are going to do a funky Bluffski. All right, so let's take a look at the spot. There are 4 players remaining in this tournament. You know, one of the things you think about in the final table is ICM considerations. Where do you sit? And probably one of the biggest advancements with the younger generation is just the depth of understanding of like where you sit and how you should play as a result. So, extreme example of this. Let's say you have 8 big blinds. There's one guy with 2. There's one guy with 3. Well, normally 8 blinds is not very much, right? So you're just like, well, I got to go all in. Right? No. Now, you sitting there with the 8 big blind stack, you're in completely nit mode. You have to play super, super tight, right? Whereas, let's say, for example, you have 8 big blinds, and the other players at the table have 40, 45, 50. Well, in that case, you can start being more liberal because you're not outweighting anybody. So these subtle things really play in terms of like how a lot of smart players think about final tables and stuff like that. So in this hand, I'm actually in a spot against the player who I know is a studied player. And he's sitting second, I'm sitting third. So he has me covered by just a little bit. But I'm not an ICM pushover. I'm not somebody who shies away from fighting for spots. I think that makes myself a little bit more, difficult to play against. Maybe it leads to a few more like ICM punts, and I don't really care. I'm going for the win from the get-go.
Bottom all again, the short stack, 14 big blinds. Oya, the big stack with 61 big blinds. So this tournament far from over.
So this hand, it's 40 and 80,000 blinds. Smiljkovic, let's go with that. Smiljkovic. We're just going to call him, what should we call him? Smiley. We're going to call him Smiley, okay? Because that works. Smiley raises to 160, min raise. From under the gun, which is, it's just four-handed. It's the cutoff as well. And we're in the big blind, and we have the Jack 7 of diamonds. So off of our stack size here, it's just pretty easy to defend. You're not folding this hand four-handed, especially with the big blind ante. Even if you were offsuit here, you're probably going to call, take a flop. Unless, as we spoke about, there's some extreme ICM considerations. Like, you wouldn't play Jack 7 offsuit if the 4th player has 2 big blinds left. You just have to bow to the chip leader. And that's what you see a lot in these final tables, is a lot of bowing. Everyone says, okay, you're Mr. Chip Leader. I'm sitting here in third. There's 2 guys ready to go broke. I'll wait, So, we make the call with the Jack 7 of diamonds.
Negreanu and Smiljkovic here in action. Smiljkovic had raised with the Jack 10. Negreanu defended the big blind with Jack 7. Smiljkovic comes with a continuation bet here. Daniel hasn't folded yet and looks like he's counting out a check raise. Just gonna come with it here, does Kid Poker.
We haven't seen Negreanu get out of line even once at this final table, so potentially.
Yeah, also an interesting spot here for Smiljkovic. He has that gutter to a straight. He has the 10 of hearts as well. Does make the call in position.
And the flop is the King of Hearts, 4 of Hearts, 9 of Diamonds. So we have a grand total of Stugat. We got nothing. Stugat. I don't know what I'm going to say. All right. I check, which is, customary in this situation. And Smiley bets 125. So he's betting about quarter pot, right? Again, so far so good. Everything reasonable. Now the question is, with our hand, what to do next? Well, we don't have anything, but we have a lot of perceived equity here. We have a couple 3-card straight draws. We have 9 Jack King. We have 7 9 Jack. We've also got the backdoor diamond draw, right? So we have some backdoor potential. Now, I think it's probably too much equity to just check fold here, although you could make a case for that even against small. But I think it's also a spot where you could peel and potentially set up some bluffs on a check-check turn. So let's say you check call the flop, turn is check-check, and then river's a queen. Well, you know, now you can go ahead and bet. With your jack high, you're blocking some jack 10. You know, it's very reasonable that you have a king. All these types of hands you can sort of represent. There's not a lot that peeled the flop that is now a bluff. So that's one way to play it, right? The other way is to check raise, right? You have to have some check raises on flop sometimes, because sometimes you're going to want to check on this board king 4, king 9, pocket 4s. You're going to want to check some of your strong hands. And if you're only doing that with your strong hands, well, then you're not going to get the action that you deserve, or that is warranted for such a hand. So you have to have some bluffs. And when constructing bluffs, it's a good idea to construct bluffs that can turn into higher equity barrels on the turn. So with our jack 7 of diamonds, right, there's a decent number of turn cards we could turn where we could, you know, continue with the story that we're telling, right, and fire a second barrel. If we had jack 7 of clubs here, I think it's just fold, because we don't have that backdoor flush draw, right? So here's the thing. The stack depths, you know, we're not that deep. You know, it is a final 4 situation. So the raise size on this board doesn't have to be crazy big. You can throw in some bigger raises here, but you can also have a decent number of relatively small raises. So he bets 125. I like to go small, raising to just 365,000. So it's another 240 for him to call. And I expect him to call a decent amount. And then if I pick up a good turn card, maybe we'll continue the story. However, on this flop, let's say he just had queen 7 of clubs. He just folds. If he has ace 3 of clubs, he's just going to fold a lot. He's not necessarily going to continue with a lot of his weaker holdings, right? He's going to peel with his gut shots. He's going to peel, you know, with any pair, some backdoor stuff as well. But we block a little bit of that, as I said. So a decent number of times you're going to actually win this on the flop. And when you don't, again, you can still set yourself up well for the turn.
I mean, Negreanu must have a game plan for the case in which this happens, that we go to the turn. Donnie,
I would say backdoor diamonds are very much in that game plan.
Of course. But can he continue to fire on this with confidence?
I think so. You know, you pick up the equity here that you're likely looking for, can continue on through.
Only 1.9 million left, with 1.1 in the middle.
We'll see how he wants to size it, because he's got 1.9 million, like you said, 1.7 or 1.17 in the middle. So maybe he sizes it where then he sizes up a shove on the river. Here he comes. What's that, 450, 475?
Oh, yeah.
There it is. 475, and that gets it
Look
done.
at that.
Very important pot here for Negreanu. He is now up over 3 million chips. Second in chips at this final table.
He's doing it.
So far, so good.
He's doing it.
Now on the turn, we have a pot of 1.17 million in there. Here's the dilemma. Turn is the deuce of diamonds. So we've turned the flush draw, right? As I said, there's going to be a decent number of cards that give us some higher equity situations. If he has a king, I don't expect him to fold. I expect him now, if I bet the turn, to fold his gut shots, his ace high type hands, and the like. So the question is how much to bet. Now, if you bet too much, right, you're going to be forced to call the raise all in, because you're going to be priced in. So this is a spot on this turn card with a double monotone board, or the double flush draw board. I think you can incorporate some less than half pot sizing, probably 1/3 pot-ish, but I go for 475 into 1.17. I thought about this one for a while. I took about a minute. And again, my thinking was, you know, don't want to commit myself with this bet size. And I also, you know, don't necessarily want to make it easy for him to peel to the river and put me in a difficult spot where I might have to just fire the third barrel if we miss. So I go for the 475. He folds his jack 10 and we win. Okay, so You know, we're lucky he didn't have anything. He didn't have a king here. But even if he did, he probably doesn't raise a king here. And very often. Not if it's just a regular king. Like if he just had king 8 suited or something like that, he's probably just calling. And he's going to let us try to bluff it off on the river. So for that 475, you know, we're sort of giving ourselves our own price if he does call to hit that flush. We're not getting a good price, you know, 470. We're not getting the right price, if you will. But when you factor that in with the fold equity that we have with the bet, as well as a size that allows us to still bluff rivers, right? Like, what rivers would we bluff? Well, we'd probably have to bluff some Queen Jack 10 rivers, right? We'd probably have to bluff. Frankly, even without a heart in our hand, we'd probably still have to bluff some hearts because hearts is a reasonable holding for us to have. So those would be the kind of cards we bluff. We probably are not going to be bluffing an ace, you know, but a Queen Jack 10, heart, those would be our bluff cards. The diamond is our payoff card. Obviously, if we hit that, we would just, you know, be betting for value. But the idea here is that you're fighting for flops. And when you do so, you want to do so with your strong hands. You want to do so with some of your bluffs. But when you are choosing bluffs, choose bluffs that have some blocker effects and also have some backdoor equity. Those are the better ones to choose, rather than say bluffing here with, like, you know, Queen 3. Like, what turn card am I going to hope for if I have Queen 3 that's going to give me a chance to bluff this turn or give myself an opportunity to actually develop some equity? There isn't. So Jack 7 of diamonds falls into that category. The check raise worked, a little bit of aggressive play. You know, he's c-betting every flop, right? So you can't just let somebody c-bet you to death and then only raise them with good hands. You gotta push back a little bit and bluff, especially as you get short-handed and you get deeper in the tournament. You have to factor this in with, as well, thinking of ICM, where your chip stack is, and if your chip stack is in some spots you have to be risk averse, where, like, if there's 2-3 big blind stacks, but in other cases, you know, you're the one that can push the pedal to the metal. And that's something to always be thinking about at a final table when it's time to push the pedal to the metal. And for me, it was this hand. We did so. We succeeded. Mission accomplished.